بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before I start my presentation, I would like to ask a small question that is highly relatable to my paper, which is, do you know that way before the digital age, we had cybersecurity attacks even during World War II? Well, during World War II, the British, in order to defeat the Germans, in order to prevent the Germans from attacking their bombers, they did deploy something called chat in order to, what we call in the digital age, to DDoS the German radar. So for that, they were able to penetrate and defeat the Germans. For today, in today's day and age, with the advances in modern digital age, we have way more complex cybersecurity attacks that needs further and way complex ways to defend it. One of the ways we need to defend it is to simulate these attacks. And to simulate these attacks, simulating these attacks is very important in order to know our vulnerabilities and to protect ourselves from someone being able to exploit them. Imagine a world where, using the same way we used AI to predict rainstorms, we will be able to predict cybersecurity attacks and prevent them to be exploited even before they get discovered. So this paper weaponizes the large language models for cybersecurity offensive operation, and in small area, it focused on automating the vulnerability assessment reports, in validating the vulnerability assessment reports. So the rising problem of cybersecurity attacks led us to start using vulnerability assessment report. But the problem with vulnerability assessment report is that we have two main problems with them. The first problem is that it generates so many false positive vulnerabilities. The other problem is that it requires very long process and time-consuming process in order to validate these vulnerabilities. So in normal situations, for me, for someone else to have the same infrastructures, that doesn't mean that we both have the same vulnerabilities. Maybe the other person patched these vulnerabilities or so on. So what happens is that vulnerability assessment tools, they don't validate if these vulnerabilities are actually exploitable or not. So the goal for this paper is to investigate the ways that we can automate the validation of this report without needing to spend too much time and effort in order to do this task. So what are as we discussed, the limitations for the current vulnerability assessment tools is that they are time consuming, and it's hard to find people who are actually able to accurately validate these exploits. And although the vulnerability assessment tools were very good at certain time, but as we can see in recent times, sorry, I don't know why. So as you can see in this chart, in 2023 alone, only in the US, the damages in US dollars reached way above 12 billion US dollar, only in 2023 and only in the USA. This amount of damage is equivalent to the budget of multiple countries, all combined. So how what what can we do to reduce these damages? Well, this research focus on the gap that there is very limited research in the area of using the LLMs to be able to process this report. Well, also our paper focus on take this gap as an opportunity to shed the light on the importance and the potential of LLMs into solving this issue. Why? First of all, LLMs are able to streamline these. LLMs can reduce the false positive errors, and it can reduce the manual validation. Well, technically, are LLMs able to do these tasks? Well, LLMs, as we can see, LLMs have uh, have many capabilities, including the NLP feature, which is natural language processing. It can process the human language and it can read the reports. So the paper proposes a sort of proposed approach to be able to process these using LLMs. Well, the approach that this paper produce is that fine-tuning LLMs. We can fine-tune these LLMs in order to make them more efficient in reading these technical reports. The second thing is to identify genuine vulnerabilities. The third thing is to cross-check these vulnerabilities with online up-to-date databases. So the suggested framework is that we could use Llama 3.1 or 3.2 to make it initialize the vulnerability assessment scan. So then the vulnerability assessment tool generates the report. This report is human readable, so it should be readable by the LLMs. So the LLMs gets the report, analyze it, and then using its capability to be integrated with other platforms, it communicates with vulnerability databases. For example, the example in the research was the NVD, and then after that, it tries to exploit these vulnerabilities and then produce a report. So, as we discussed earlier, these are a bit challenging tasks to be done, and it's even challenging for humans. It's very hard to find expert areas. Can LLMs actually be able to do these tasks? Well, LLMs has the capability to deal with NLP, to process the human language. It has the ability to be integrated with our softwares, with other platforms, online platforms and softwares. And then on the other hand, we have a big benefit of automating these routine checks and having a 24-hour, 7 days a week software that can all the time check our system with high accuracy. So this paper expects that that the LLMs would dramatically reduce false positive reports. Second is that it reduces time wasted on manual labor, manual repetitive paperwork, and it improves the accuracy. And in this exact part, I would like to mention a work that has been announced by the X platform account called LLM Security. They announced that they were able to achieve 97% accuracy when using Llama 3.1 for offensive cybersecurity operation. I don't have exact number, but I believe this is this is maybe equivalent or even maybe very, very competitive with the human interaction. So at the end, there are some, yes, we know there are some ethical concerns regarding the use, introducing such power, like combining such powerful two areas using LLMs into a very sensitive area, which is cybersecurity. We know that, but this is a risk that we have to go for. It's the same as many other cybersecurity tools that can be used for good and for bad. Also, LLMs can enhance the vulnerability assessment report validation, reducing the manual effort and improving the overall efficiency. And at the end, this paper suggests something very important. In order to accurately measure this area, since this area is not being highly discovered, so in this area, we recommend that we need to have a benchmarking specialized in LLM security area. So everyone can measure their work with these benchmarks. Thank you very much for listening, and that's all.
Thank you, Doctor. Any questions?
Thank you for this presentation. But don't you think the LLM it's a risky step in cybersecurity?
Yes, it's well, it's even risky to get into the internet, but we go use the internet. So it's, as we mentioned earlier, it's a risk that we have to take. It could go to the wrong hands, but this is something we need, especially that for bad people, the hackers, the malicious agents, they have huge resources. And on the other hand, for us, the cybersecurity professionals, we struggle to find experts in these areas. And statistics says that security area has so much deficiency that in many years to come, we still need something to fill the gap. So I think it should benefit us more than the malicious agents.
Yes, thank you.
You said earlier that we can simulate the attack.
Sorry?
You said earlier that we can simulate the attack.
Yes.
Doesn't it prove that if we can simulate an attack, the system has a weak point or security vulnerability?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's very hard to say that that this system has no vulnerability. And in cybersecurity perspective, it's a default. It's known. It's a common knowledge to assume that you have vulnerabilities. So you always have to try to detect them. That's why we have penetration testing teams, the red teaming, the red and blue teaming, to simulate these attacks, to try to mimic the hackers into trying to think the way they think, and finding the doors, the exploits that they are using in order for us to filter them or patch them. Yes. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. The last